Yeah, good morning, everybody. My voice is also a little bit under strain, but I think that's okay. So I'm extremely delighted to welcome you all. For those of you who were in Lausanne last year, thank you for coming again. For those of you who were in Wyoming the year before, I thank you one more time. Last year was the first time we did the SPO Masterclass. For the foundation, the SPOs is one of the most important roles there is, because this is about immortality of the blockchain. Now, the SPOs role will also change as the networking infrastructure changes as we go towards P2P, and there will be some classes and there will be some discussion around that. But I think one of the things which really excited me very much was the SIP 47, but also the voting experiment we did, where we actually were able to prove that we do have the crypto primitives, we do have digital identity, and we do have active SPOs who's willing to go in on the CLI and cast their vote, not just a secret vote, but a public vote. And some of you also participate in the parameter committee and so forth, and I'm really, really grateful for that. Because the way I look at it is that the SPOs is one of the cornerstones of this immortality of the blockchain going forward. However, some of you would be a little bit upset because your work is not getting easier. I mean, there will be more pressure on you, and you also saw that as a part of our new delegation strategy from the foundation, that we are already sort of hinting towards that direction with relays and so forth. And this operational resilience, but also in combination with our network monitoring and health monitoring tool, which I'm sure that will be shown here today, is really groundbreaking. I had the opportunity together with my colleague Nicholas down in the back to visit the European banking authorities, the FCA, the European Security and Market Authorities, because one thing which is being discussed a lot, more than before actually, is the staking life cycle. And we do ourselves a little bit of a disfavor when we use the same words again and again. Now, some of you would say, hey, Cardano invented staking, so why would Ethereum use the same word? That's actually sort of a bit stupid. They should rename it. But in reality it is that Ethereum is so big. So when they went to a proof of stake model, what really happened was that the regulators, they looked at that and they say, oh, that must be staking, right? But most of you know that we have liquid staking. We don't have a lock-in period, right? We don't have ownership chains and so forth. And that was the reason why we actually did the Cardano Explorer. Again, we'll probably change that name a little bit. But the staking life cycle in the Cardano Explorer is one of those things where these regulators has paid a lot of attention to, and they got a big aha feeling, because then suddenly they're saying, oh, we understood before NFTs is NFTs. And we were trying to say, hey, NFTs can be multiple things. And now they're coming in and say, oh, we know what staking is. Staking is a type of banking activity, and you need to be regulated, which is of course something which will potentially hit your work, right? But also hit the adoption of Cardano. Therefore, will be also a couple of lawyers here later, right? But our ability to show the staking life cycle, and I hope all of you have been playing around with that, is actually truly unique. As you also saw, we also took down our pants, literally speaking, right? And showed the incentive structure or the start of the protocol parameter changes in the Explorer. This is, of course, something which, again, the regulator pays attention to, because everybody's always saying, oh, we are sufficiently decentralized, right? But as you probably saw with the EDI, and for those of you who downloaded the CLI and run the Python scripts, right? Quite a lot of work has gone into that. But decentralized doesn't mean decentralized. And there is a trade-off here. And we are getting more and more questions around, magical keys and who decide what and why. And therefore, it's so good that we can point back to what I started by saying with this voting experiment, because we now have data on-chain who can basically say, we actually are doing on-chain voting with more than 40% of data holders, right? So we are building up this track record towards escape velocity from a regulatory perspective. But that doesn't mean that we are in a home-safe turf yet, huh? But all of this is things which sometimes gets lost in the fast waste of Twitter and blogs and all of those things. And that's why we have you here today, because we want to talk to you about what is your experience about running a node. We want to talk to you about what we are doing to give you a look under the hood, so you can get a little bit of explanations about the Cardano Foundation's specific strategy around stake pool operators. Last but not least, for some of you, again, sorry for all the regulatory part, right? Operation resilience, huh? We cannot do a disaster recovery. We cannot flip a switch and then start Cardano up at whatever point we want. I know there's a lot of so-called blockchains who has the ability to do that. We can't do that, huh? So I want to talk a little bit also about the bias. one of the reasons why we have you in the room is because we actually need you to trust multiple entities in Cardano. If you do not trust multiple entities in Cardano, we have a single point of failure. A single point of failure is not good, right? Because, you know, let's say IOG suddenly, of some weird reason, is not able to assist or not able to be there, right? Who is then going to coordinate any kind of disaster recovery, bug fixing, you name it? Ideally speaking, we should have no coordination, right? But this has actually not been built into SIP 1694. When you kind of look into what SIP 1694 is and how the code is, this is a lot about, you know, participatory governance, but it's not actually touching so much about the operation resilience. And what's really important for us is that we keep the notion that a stake pool operator can be anonymous, because this is about the equitable part, this permissionless view that everybody can participate, right? And this is a fight. This is something where the regulator says, hey, we don't want that. We want people to be KYC'd and AML'd and travel rules and all of that. And we are saying, yeah, well, hold on a second. You know, the way Cardano is designed, you know, we don't have that banking activity. We don't have that ownership change, right? So some of those things is why you are here today as well. We want to ensure, and I know this is hard to ask, right? But we are on a journey where we want to show that you can trust us as Cardano Foundation as well. And hopefully in the future, there will also be other entities looking at operational resilience and looking at those things. And you'll be able to trust them as well, because we need some kind of coordination along those lines. Huh? So that was a few points just to sort of set the tone. I think we can probably do a couple of questions if you want to. Yeah. No? Wow. That's good for me. Okay, I mean, seriously, I mean, don't be shy, huh? Because unfortunately, it's going to be sort of locked into a room for the next 12 hours, speaking to a lot of journalists and a lot of people. So I won't be so available. I know I have the best team I can, you know, wish for in this room, huh? So you're going to, you know them already, right? But you know, don't be shy. Any questions goes, huh? Well, good. I'm not complaining. One more time, thank you very much for being a stake pool operator. Thank you for believing in Cardano. And thank you for doing your work every single day, 24/7, 365 days a year.
First, I need a little bit to understand to who I'm talking to. So first, please, hands up, who is a stake pool operator? Okay, good mix, good. Next, please, all the hands up and take it down as soon as you read something that you cannot explain, you don't feel safe to explain. So, Cardano is okay. Blocks is okay, good. Propagation. A block header. Latency. A block header pipelining. Okay. A topology. Okay, good. And blocks from the future. Okay. So we are going to talk about networks. And this is not a Cardano network. I did this presentation as a dry run last month in Las Vegas. So this is a map of the public transportation in Las Vegas. And there we have lines, stations, trains, and passengers. And we can look at it like connections, nodes, blocks, and transactions. So specifically now for this project, where we will see something more later in this presentation, we focus on trains or blocks and how they work. Because probably the layers above us, so if we see the scientific research, then the engineering, formal specification, there is a release. The software that we use as stake pool operators, we rely on all this groundwork. But what we run is what upper layers like applications developers rely on. So these upper layers probably will ask for more throughput, block size, transactions, memory units, whatever. And this is where usually in a public transportation network, a company looks for. So they look for that the lines are in the right place where they are needed, where the frequency of the trains is as demanded, where the capacities, so the size of the trains, so like a block size also fits in, and how it is used. So that all works well, and it is just, you can safely assume as a user or as a developer that all of this works. Because the passengers, the end users, expect this. They don't know all about these challenges and know how to run all of this. Now here's the big difference now between a public transportation company or network and us. There is no one single company who will care about all of this. So we need to figure out how we can understand the global network and where we can expand, where we can change a parameter, where we can do a hard fork and improve. And this is all about the network monitoring project that we started at Cardano Foundation, which is not a product. It is a service operated by and run by and provided by Cardano Foundation, what needs to be as a central thing in order to aggregate a lot of data. But we are here today, I'm here today to pitch to you an idea and to invite you to participate in providing your individual point of view and perspective towards the network. And this is because we want to solve or we want to approach two challenges. The first one is operational resilience. So what can go wrong or what is starting to go wrong and how we can detect this fast enough, early enough, and mitigate it. The second thing is, that comes only afterwards, but is a very important thing, when we are going to have more governance, then there will be some questions and some decisions to take, and in the middle, we need some discussion. So the discussion can be ideologically motivated. It will definitely be. There will be some clear demands, like someone has a great application idea, but needs 3 times the block size. Then he has a clear opinion. The block size needs to go up. Now, there should be someone else who can safely say, yes, that is currently possible, and we can do it. Or there should be some facts and some good solid data where we can prove that this is no way that we can simply do it. So, and this is why this monitoring project is also designed in a way to not only look at monitoring in the classical way, like is all working as it is with the green and the red lamp, but it is also about collecting data for governance discussions. So the rest of the presentation comes in 3 parts. First, I explain a little bit how block propagation in Cardano actually works in order to understand then what the monitoring project is, and especially then I have also already in the third part some charts and some ideas to give you an idea of what the benefits of the monitoring project will be. But in order to understand these charts, we first need to go through a little bit on how this all works. So as you all know, I assume this is clear known information. We have a random slot leader election. So we have a block around every 20 seconds, but it is a random election. So it can be like here. The first block appears, then 6 seconds, 6 slots is nothing. Then we have 20 empty slots and the next block and so on. So if we count these, not the blocks, but the empty areas between these, then we can count them up. For example, here we had 6 empty slots. So I count this up by +1. Then we had 20 empty slots. I count this up and so on. And if I go forward now and do this for a whole epoch, then we will have a certain distribution that appears. And now I have a question. What would you expect how this distribution looks like? Like the blue line, the red line, or the green line? So please hands up for the blue line. Okay, for the red line? And the green? Okay. It actually is the blue line. So in average or in mean, it is 20 seconds. But attention here, pay attention here, this goes up to 120 seconds. So as you know, we sometimes have 2 minutes or even more of no blocks. Random things can happen, so it is. To let me explain you quickly here, the yellow part is what you know as slot battles. So if randomly 2 leaders are elected for the same slot, it's like Highlander, there can only be one. So one wins, the other loses. So the blocks that appeared on the same slot are never on chain. So they are not here. This is just a theoretical number. All the blue lines was adopted in this epoch. All the orange lines was hate battles. They was not adopted on chain. So this will be actually an empty space. I only filled it to give you an idea what we had here as a volume of missed capacity to bake transactions into a block. And this was an epoch long time ago. We had smaller block sizes and we had no block header pipelining. This is when header pipelining jumped in, and it was not so far afterwards. We had even already larger block sizes, and we see that the block header pipelining helped a lot to mitigate these hate battles that happened very near, so just 1 second, 2, 3 seconds after the previous block. So this, just to give you an idea where the challenge is, because what this means is that where the block is produced all around the globe, it needs to reach all, or at least the definition is 95% of all other block producers around the globe. And this through many hops, because the topologies are not always direct connections. We don't even know who the next block producer is, so we need to distribute it to the whole network. And this is, we need to ensure a timely propagation. We need to have a solid topology to not miss out or have a split of the network or a bad connected areas around the globe, in order to avoid these mini forks, the hate battles and rollbacks. We also need to think about fast computation. We will see later here that it is not only about the network. There are different individual small steps for each block and how it propagates. And there is also computation is one thing. Then proper configuration. If everything is designed perfectly, but the server or whatever it is has some suboptimal configuration, too much other loads or whatever it is, then even the best network and protocol design cannot help out. Then it is also that hopefully all of you do your local monitoring, which is not what this monitoring project is about. Each one still needs to keep his individual monitoring as best as possible, where he understands how his own network works. Because in this project here, we don't look at your block producer. It is only about the relays and how they see the rest of the network. And this is where you have a hard time to understand it. Your block, when it is produced, you pass it over to the relay, and then on the next step you pass it out, but you don't actually know how it is seen by all the rest of the network. So the idea here is that by inviting all of you to contribute how you received other blocks and put this all together, the other contributors can see how the blocks was received on the other side, so on the next block producer or whatever it is. So, and this is where we then, well, it goes no forward. Okay. So now a little bit about the protocol. So assume your producer produced a block, it passes to the relay and to the global network. How does this work in Cardano? Sorry. Need to go here now. So if we look at our world, and we assume that we have your producer, your relay, and a peer where you will want to bring out your block. Then if you look at it, we start first with your producer and your relay. It has a certain distance. Mostly it is just a LAN network, so we talk about milliseconds and not even meters. And we have a time. So now over time, something is going to happen. The block producer, out of memory pool, and because he sees that he is the elected slot leader, is going to mint a block. This takes some time. Then the next step is that he announces the header. So he only says, I have a new blockade. He does not push or throw out the block. So it is not an offensive behavior. It is a, hey, there is something new. And your relay does not know about this block. So he says, okay, I don't have it, please send it to me. So please give me the body of this header. It fetches the block, and then this relay doesn't simply assume this is all right. It does a validation. It opens the block, looks into the body, the transaction, and does a full validation. All of this takes its time, and it is a different thing. So the block producer takes its time to mint the block. This is computation power. The announcement and the fetch request is more like topology network, how well I'm connected, network speed, and latency. You see here that the latency here in a short distance is not so much. But if we go now to the next hop, and the exact same thing, except the block production happens again. We see here that the header pipelining brings the benefit that it starts already here and not only here. That's all about the magic about header pipeline. And then the same thing happened again, but as the distance is larger, is more, we have more latency. It just takes longer. And so the exact same thing takes longer, depending on the distance and depending on network speed and so on. The last step is again only a local computation power. So the delay of a block or the latency of a block, how you receive it, is a combination of things that you have. There is no simple reason why something takes longer or is faster. We can see this also like this. So let's remove the errors and just look at it like this. So this is then, and please take note of the colors. The black one is where we wait. So the first relay here, from when we look at it without the arrows, then the black area is where he is black. He does not even know that someone produced a new block. Then he hears about a new header and says in the red area, I need this. I send out a fetch request. And this can go because he may hear it from different areas, because each relay has many connections. He starts requesting it at one part, but if there is no response, then he starts asking it for more. So this request is not just a millisecond fire, but what we count here is as how long it takes until he fired the request that was successful then. Then the download is the green area. It comes with some bytes and some that requires time, and there's a big difference if you download it from just the neighbor country or from the other side of the globe. That has a big impact here. And this is where we simply can't 10 times block size, because here that would have serious impact. And the last part is the local validation with of the block. So all of this happens with many more nodes, even much more nodes. So we need to understand this like a global network, and you see this from your own perspective, but each one participates here with his own view and his own network. And all of this then has to work together. So let's come back to this one here. The topologies can be centralized. When we started in Chalet, then we was asked with the topology files to all connect to IOG relays. This basically would have ended up in like what I call a star link, a star topology. It is all around one central star. Then it can be decentralized. It is not exactly what I did with topology updater, but somehow it is not really, it is decentralized somehow, and it already establishes connections between the participants, but it is still not perfect. What we want to achieve is a fully distributed network where the individual nodes are going to find their best peers without anyone to rely on, or without any central point of aggregation or any central authority who provides peer connections. And this is where P2P comes in. Some of you probably already run a P2P, you do your relays in P2P mode. P2P is a quite old thing as a term. Not sure, 20 years ago, eDonkey, file downloads, and so on. That was already P2P, but we need a different P2P in blockchain and in Cardano. So it is not just file sharing, and it is not equally privileged. It is about as quickest and as independent as possible block propagation. It needs to be safe, so you never trust your other peer. But we need to ensure that no attack or no malicious player starts tricking us. Independent, as mentioned. And this is why I prefer to name our P2P, so the marketing department at IOG named it dynamic P2P. Maybe it could also be named turbo P2P, but I prefer to name it P2P-OS, because it is a proof of peer-to-peer of stake. So you need to understand that when you register your relays on chain, then this is the database where the P2P module starts picking peers randomly. It sees there are thousands of relays, and it starts randomly picking them. But it has a stake weight. So the more stake your pool has, the more chances it has to be picked. It is not a linear dependency, it is a square rooted. So very large pools have less, and the very small pools have still a chance to be picked. But then the P2P module is also a diva. So the P2P module, don't mess up with them. So if you follow the protocol, then it will keep a connection. But if you do things that the protocol does not expect, it will just drop your connection. If you, as a remote peer, don't appear as useful, so the P2P module establishes 20 or 50 connections, and it counts when you announce headers, and it counts especially the first headers. And all the nodes who don't announce headers first are considered as not useful, so they are dropped and new randomly picked. So this is about how it tries to self-determine an as best as possible connection without relying on any external things. So without going in more details, there's more about P2P, but just to give you an understanding. And what it does, it creates 3 lists, a hot, warm, and cold connection list. The cold one is just to have an idea where I count a little bit and what I randomly pick. From this cold list, it creates a warm list where it establishes connection and start listening if it's useful or not. And from that one, the best one are the hot ones where really the blocks and the transactions are flowed on through this mini protocol, as showed before. Let's save some time. So this is how it looks then. If you have a relay here in the north of America, the P2P module, or before it was topology updater, provides a topology where you peer to some of the other nodes in the network. And another relay or another block operator does it from his point of view. And if you overlay all of this, then we are not going forward here, but you can imagine this is quite a huge amount of connections. So topology updater served up to 3,000 relays, and each one around an average of 15 connections. Then just do the math, it was 50, 60,000 connections that was only provided by topology updater. And that's maybe half of the network. So, and through all of these connections, we have what we have seen before, this, hey, I have a new header, I don't have it, please send it to me, body, and so on. So this is quite a lot of things happening, and all of this should ideally happen within 1 second, globally. So, quite a challenge. So now, how can we see how it works, and how can we measure it? You see here some bars, and if you remember, we have a black, a red, a green, and then a blue part, and it is waiting, requesting, downloading, and locally adopting. And this is already a view. This is a Gantt diagram that we can now look at, and how it actually looks like. So this is not from this. Let's just look at right now. This is a live view. So this was a block from 5 minutes ago, and I can scroll here. Go to this site here. So this block was produced a couple of seconds ago, and we already have a full view of how it appeared on the network. Here we have a list of already participating relays. Here I have to say I started this project as a one-man show before I joined Cardano Foundation 1.5 years ago. So there is a version 1 of this monitoring project, and what you look at it here is this version 1. I broke this into Cardano Foundation because it became a little bit larger than expected, and also, in my opinion, important. So it should definitely not remain a one-man show. So now in Cardano Foundation, there's a whole team that worked in the past half year on a version 2, where we already learned about how to design this better to scale up and to become more reliable. So this here is still a thing from version 1, where we have around 80 participating relays. So if I scroll down here, then you see each of these lines here is one of a relay around the globe. You see the cities. Not sure if you can read them. Yeah. And this is how the blocks appear here. So you see more or less everything is within 1 second. It looks fine, but there are clearly differences in how long it took to send a fetch request. By the way, each of these bars here, you can click on it and see the details, how long it exactly took. It is also possible to click here, and this is already an idea to give you an idea how differently we can look at data. This is here a live, like a play thing, how this propagated over the network. So if I reload it, then you see the first 3 I mark it in blue, so you have an idea. We see where it first appeared. So this apparently came from Asia, South Asia, and then it first popped up in a thing. What you also see here, we miss a little bit of reporting nodes in certain areas of the world. So it will be very important to have also these views. Now I have a couple of examples here that I wanted you to show. This is what we already have seen. So let's go here this way so we are faster. So this does not look good. So what we see here is that there was a block. Sorry, to let me explain also here. Above you see 16th August, the time 10:34, and then you see the slot 10,060,000, and at the end just 351, 352, 353. So these are the slots and the seconds. The red thing you see is a block, and it has a block number. So this was the block 112. And here you see the problem. You would expect the next one is 113. It is also 112, because what happened is the black bar from the first block goes up to here. So this producer could not know about this block. What he did, he produced on the previous block a hate battle because of a delayed block. And so we have a hate battle. This is what happened more and more in the last couple of weeks and months. And only one can win, so the other one will lose this block. And this is what we don't want. So we need to figure out how can this happen. So what is causing this one, this long delay? Because you see all the rest, the fetch requests, the download, and the adoption was not a problem. It was just waiting a very long time. So, and this is why it is important to split this up in 4 steps and not just look at the propagation time. Next thing that we have here is a late anti-block. So this is here, this is not the block, this is the previous block. Then you see a very long time, random, this is all fine. A very long time, no block, and then you see there's a block with 0 kilobyte. So it theoretically is possible, but it is not very probable to have such a long time without any transaction. And then still the block is produced, and even if it's completely empty, so no work to do, it still takes a very long time to be announced, and again a hate battle. So again, this is even worse because this is not heavy work and delay. If you are stressed, then sometimes takes longer and someone else needs to wait. Here nothing happened, and still we have a long waiting time. So another thing we need to figure out or try to understand what the reason is. This here is a very interesting one because I need to be honest, I still have no idea what happened here or what the reason is. You see again something that takes much longer than expected, but you see the adoption for all reporting nodes. So as if all nodes around the globe are throttled in their CPU power or have to do a lot of things. But if you look at the block size, it is only 26 kilobyte. And when I looked at this specific block in EUTXO, the content is nothing that is in any way explainable with all the smart contracts developers I asked for. Really nothing extraordinary or complicated. So I still have no idea what happened here, but it is not always this long waiting time. Sometimes it is also something like this. Because you need to understand, we look here only on the relays, but probably this long adoption time already happened on the minting and on the first relay. So the long delay here is caused by the blue part and not what we have seen before. So lesson or what we can take a note here is there will be different reasons why we have a problem. Now we look at the block from the future. So let me explain what happens here. You see the block, but it appeared somehow before the slot time. How is this possible? So it is possible if the block producer's local time has an offset, is set off a little bit. But here you see a difference. Some nodes, even if it appeared early, quickly send a fetch request. You don't even see this little red line here. Downloaded it and adopted it after the slot time came. What you see here is that I need something, or try to draw a line here. So up, then you see that all the later ones who ended up here, luckily and by milliseconds in the slot time, adopted it. All the nodes who get it a little bit too early and would have adopted it before the slot time ended up in a lock. So this is currently an issue. It is what we filed already on the node. The Cardano node here is stuck in adoption. And it is stuck until the next block is triggered. But that's already too late because the other one highly probably has not received the block or adopted it. So again, a hate battle, and again, something we don't want. But the main, or the source of the issue is here that this block producer produced a little bit too early. Things what was practiced in ITN to win slot battles or hate or the blocks don't work here. So if you try to trick with the clock, you are only messing up yourself. So this is not useful, and it will also then cause a 50-50 loss. And this is important. 50% of the losses will be on your side, and 50% will be on all other stake pools. So not good for you. Our next example is a block from the future, but with 1.5 seconds. So just to give you an idea, here we have the slot time, and the block was produced very off. And what we have is that all ended up in the stuck situation. So no way for the other one to see it, no way to adopt it, and then again a hate battle, and one of them was the winner. Then what we have, okay, this is now a combination. This is also a block from the future, and this is something that I was asked for. So here we have a situation where a block from the future starts starts an issue, then this is the same block, so we have a hate battle, and the next block here built on the wrong one, then there was a rollback, so we have a 2-block rollback here, because also this can happen. So on the first view here, all of this looks fine and good, but it also caused an issue. So it does not always need to be long bars and kind of issues. Now we look at what I tried to name a reverse block from the future. And this is where I need to explain then a little bit. Hope it loads. Yeah, here we have it. Looks good, right? It was all in time, next block produced. The problem was we still have 199 and 199. So the problem here was not to propagate out the block, but this block producer had a relay in front, and this relays, for some reason, didn't manage to bring this block into the block producer. So all of other reporting nodes had it right in time, but this pool here had relays who didn't manage to bring in the block in time. So we have a reverse hate battle. It does look good, but still we have a hate battle because this one here didn't know about this. Then we have again the VRF solution. This one was the winner, and this one has no idea. My propagation looks perfect. I did all right, but still I ended up losing this block. How is this possible? Yeah, it is possible because the next producer did not receive it in time, not propagate it in time. And then we have an even worse one. So now there are a couple of reasons why this is even worse. First is because my pool was involved and lost the battle. The next thing is that the pool who caused it was a reverse one, run only one relay. And it is basically a perfect fit of the new Cardano Foundation delegation strategy. So don't run a node with just one relay. Do a couple of things, and basically this one failed in all of this. And then it had a long delay, and it caused a hate battle. So this is an even worse, at least from my point of view, example of what happened. And as you see, it can also be not only, so reverses can not only be very close things, but you see the more delay it has for incoming blocks, it can also be a quite normal situation. So not just an unlucky where the slots was just one after the next one in second distance. Now, so we have seen a lot of always the same charts. What we also can do is look how the network looks like. But what we don't do is, it is quite simple to pick up all the relays registered on chain and count them by IP and then assign them to a country. What we do here is we count where the blocks come from. So not how many IPs exist and then just count them, but we actually look where the blocks come from. And this is currently a distribution. Oh, sorry, you see this is not so readable. So this is, what we have here is United States and Germany with 27 and 26%, then Canada, Japan, United Kingdom, Singapore, France, Netherlands, Finland, Australia, Ireland, Switzerland, and so on. Then we can also look at this data in a completely aggregated thing. So by counting all of this together and over time, we can compute the same counters or similar counters like you have on your local node. You probably know the CDF values. So this CDF1, CDF3, and CDF5, which means how long it took to receive a 95 percentile of the blocks over a certain amount of time. So we don't look at individual blocks, but a whole time range. So like day by day here, or week by week over time. And then we look with the values how long it took, how the time for the 95 percentile in between the 5 seconds, the 3 seconds, and the 1 second. And this is because the Ouroboros protocol is built on this 5, 3, 2, 1 second assumption. Then go back here to the slides. So it should be better visible, sorry. This is then a similar view. Here we count the delayed blocks. So it is not the CDF value, but we see, oh, there are blocks that take way longer as it showed. And we count them by day. And then again, the green line is how many blocks we had in a single day that took longer than a second to propagate. And you see it goes up. That showed this is not a good sign. Because we have more blocks. Here we start in February of this year, and this is August, end of August. Then the yellow line is how many blocks took longer than 2 seconds, and then the red line how many blocks we had that took longer as 3 seconds. And you also see that it starts going up. So here is what we need to figure out what is happening. And it is also a reason why we then it was somehow announced, but then not executed or finalized to go full P2P in October. So it is not an issue of P2P, but as we migrated more and more in P2P, and we saw this pattern, we said, okay, let's pause this a little bit and look at some other reasons why and how to fix it. It is not P2P alone, but it has some effects that we need to look into and maybe fix before we go forward. So no reason to turn off P2P. Just be aware that it is not yet communicated to just go full P2P, because we first need to look into this. We work here together, so Foundation, with the monitoring project with IoG engineering, to look at this. Now there is another way to look at these charts. Again, we pick a lot of blocks over a certain period, for example 6 epochs or 5 epochs, sorry. And then we count them up again, like when I asked you before, counting the gaps. Here again we count up, and for example by counting, and this is here only the header announcement, so the time until you hear first about the header, not the whole block propagation. And then you here see around the 200 milliseconds we have a 7% of the whole 100%. So most blocks appear in between 180 and 200 seconds, not most headers. Now, of course, we have 4 steps, so it looks like this. And this is what we expect, because the headers are first, then it takes relatively short to request it, a little bit longer to download it, and then the adoption. So this is, and this is about all reporting nodes, so hundreds of nodes. So we can assume that this is somehow a good average or a good mean, what we can expect. And the interesting thing here is now if someone participates as a operator, this is what we have as a global view, and we can create this view for all of the producing or announcing relays. What you can have as a participant, as a contributor, is that we count only your relay. And then you see, this is my relay, and luckily it has all the weight on the left side, which is a shorter time, so it is all fine. But if some of these curves start going to the right, then it is a very strong sign that you should look into this and why it takes longer than most of all other relays. The variation is still we have, because even if my node receives a lot of blocks very fast, it will always take longer if the block comes from the other side of the world. So some blocks are always thing that it is not on me, or I cannot improve this. There is no way to improve this. And then we also have smaller blocks, larger blocks that create a little bit of this variation. So there is no reason to try to bring all of this into individual values. Then we can also look at these propagations in a very detailed form. So we can draw really, the more contributors we have, the more complete this, because this is an incomplete view of a single block and how it propagated. There are different lines we can zoom into. There are different lines. So this block came from Martin. And you see the dotted lines and the red ones. This is header announcement and then block download. So we can actually see where the header announcement went out, and then if this was the same connections where the block was also downloaded, or if another one then was faster. Because just announcing the header does not mean that he is then also the first one to serve the block. But we can really look into this, and this is not something that where we as stake pool operators will look at it that much, because it takes then a hour to understand one of these blocks. But it is very helpful and useful when we give this to the engineers, and then they can go by debugging code lines and actually see exactly if this worked as it should. But if we see here some interesting separations or unexpected things, then you know if you have all of this in just hundreds of log snippets, you don't see this. So we have crafted methodologies or scripts to design this, to draw these charts and to see if it looks like it should or not. Now we come to a last part before I finish. So you may have heard about some larger stake pools who caused a lot of hate battles in the past, Coinbase, eToro. And I tried to get in touch with them for a long time, explain them, and then finally here you see over time their block propagation. So the higher, the longer it took. You see even up to 60 seconds for a single block, at least one, but some of them are 20 seconds and definitely away from the ideal thing. But you see most of their blocks was fine, so only a few of them. So it is not a general issue. And that was the difficult part to find out, because they are not so, let's say, super responsive in direct feedback of all the questions I asked. But finally we had some idea. You see here that we first tried different things. We managed to improve it a little bit, and then we had a solution, and when they implemented it, then since then you don't hear that much problem from eToro anymore. And this was the situation for Coinbase. It is not 60 but only 30, so don't get tricked by the hate. It is just to have zoomed in. So also here we could improve a situation, but it was interestingly not the same exact issue. So it had different reasons why they had this situation before. Now it is interesting. This is a smaller pool, and we also get in touch with him because we know him very well. You just need to multiply these dots by stake size up to Coinbase or eToro, and you see it is pretty much exactly the same. Just you noticed it not so much from this pool because you highly probably did not get into a blockade battle with him. But it was pretty much exactly the same situation. So it is not only, this is the important message here, it is not only about large pools. It is also about smaller pools, and here with some little things like adding a second relay and fixing another thing, we improved the situation. This here is going back to, so we get in touch with a couple of little or pools, different pools, but all the little pools didn't count so much as the two large ones. But you see here that the mean in CDF3 and CDF5 was downgrading from in the last 2 months. And this is here the two lines for Coinbase and eToro, for eToro and Coinbase. And since we fixed them, and because they have so much stake together, we managed to already improve, so to make this visible on a global network view. So this is a global CDF 3 and 5 value. So by just fixing them two, it improved, but this does not mean that any mid-sized, smaller pool should just ignore it. Because in total, they are still even 9 times larger than these two together. This here is interesting because this is a very, very small pool. And you see that it was all fine, but it started recently, so only in mid of October, to have some of these issues. And this here is even more interesting because it clearly shows an upward trend. So, and this is why we want to look into, and we have an idea, so not me, because I'm not a developer, but we have Haskell developers in Cardano Foundation, and we found a a reason, and we implemented a bug fix that is actually running by one of the large two players, and it solved their issue. The other, as I said before, the other large operator had another issue, so it was not required to implement this fix. To give you an idea what causes this is, so we have, Denisio, how many time we have? Is Denisio here?
You have 10 minutes.
Okay, good. So, yeah, think about if we sort all the pools by size and draw a line, so like the largest one here, and then we sort them by size, then we have a certain distribution of stake pools. And we have around 200 quite saturated one, then another 200-300 mid-sized one, and then we have a very long tail of quite small pools. So it is about each pool operator needs to ask himself and see himself as, what do I provide to the network, so my relays as a service, and the second question is, what do I demand from the network, because I make outgoing connections and I want to be served. So now look at the long tail of 2,000 very small pools, ideally and in average around or close to 2 relays. Count 2,000 relays, so 2,000 pools per 2 relays, it is 4,000. Per 20 outgoing connections makes a total of 80,000 connections. If all of them run P2P, with stake-weighted random picking, then by far most of them will end up to the 200 largest pools. So if the largest pools, don't run enough resources to take this load, then basically you can call this a perfectly designed distributed denial of service attack. So this is why they had so many incoming connections. And in these incoming connections, we don't only talk about this new block header, hey, send it to me, and so on, but also the transactions propagate there. So each transaction comes from several hundred sites and needs to be validated and handled somehow. So this is, and even more, this is not only about a block, but each transaction. That can be 100 transactions in a block. So this needs to be figured out how, and there are different work streams, some shorter ones to have a quick fix, which probably is not then the way how we finally solve it. That's also why it is not simply merged and made a new release as a simple, easy solution for everyone. But it may also requires that the way how I explained the block propagation, so the protocol that is not offensive but respectful, is not how transactions propagate right now. Transaction propagation is just shouting out, transaction, here it is, and deal with it. And it probably needs a change that we do the same, we do it like with block propagation, so more respectful and not offensive. Last thing here is, as I mentioned in the beginning, is that this is not a product from Cardano Foundation that someone can start using and it is like it is, but this is why we are here, or why we try to invite you here. There needs to be some central part that aggregates all this data. So we run global distributed MQTT brokers. MQTT is a protocol that suits very well this little data that you capture on your relays, and then the script that we provide to you, it is a Python script, so it is intended to be in Python to be easy readable, so you understand it and you see and can see what you run on your relays. You should run this only on your relays. We are not interested in the secret area. So we just want to look at the relay and our outgoing. We don't care about what you have internally. That's still up to you and only to you. The thing here is then we collect all this data. There is a lot of pre-processing, putting into relational database. Then there are site watchdogs, for example, marking delayed blocks or blocks from the future or reverse blocks from the future. So we can then easily select all of them and look on and make charts about only this kind of blocks. So this is all what we provided as a backend and as a solution, in order to then provide data on 3 different levels. So the full raw data set, from a security point of view, is too much data and too much information to make it just public data. So this is why we aggregate this data as a foundation and care about, but we will not just publish it in public, because not only the white hat guys can use it, but also some malicious players. There is in all the IP addresses and ports from the global network in almost a real time. So this is not what you want to have, and there is no demand to have this in public. However, on the other side, there is some aggregated or pre-computed reports, and this not as a PDF with charts and conclusions, but data that everyone can start looking into it. Be it a block operator, be it a DApp developer, be it a security engineer, and they can start looking at it. And it is, we will try our best as possible to make this just so pre-processed data, but not biased, so that the conclusion can be drawn by who looks at it, because this is the second challenge that we want to solve or to approach here, this governance thing. So data will be available here and can be visualized in, for example, Pool Tool. Maybe he starts using it and enrich his presentations by more granular data, and also very open to other ones. And then, of course, everyone can start using this, even if it's not a permanent thing, but just for an individual parameter update question. So if there is a discussion about, then this can be used as a fact. And in the middle, there will be a reserved area where you as a block operator can access, and there you will have some charts about like only your relays compared to the average. So your benefit there is that you can look into, and you can have some feedback or some insights, monitoring insights from a global perspective that you locally will only hardly can make of. So here's where we end, and then it also comes to an explanation. Denise, can you help me?
Yes, sure.
Where are all of them? These are not. You already have it, so good. So what we have here is, it is still in work, so it will be announced in the next couple of weeks, but in order to participate in this, you need a certificate. So it is not like my version 1. It is not like my version 1 where everyone could simply start providing data, and I ended up in not even knowing who this is. So as for now, there is a CIP 22 standard where you as a stake pool operator can authenticate yourself that you are the real owner of this stake pool. And there will be a process. Martin, Andrew, and Adam are the inventors or the proposers of this CIP. So we will use this standard as an onboarding process, as a sign-up process to get this certificate. You need this certificate only one for your pool, and it is not bound to IP addresses or relays or what else. You can then just start using it on all of your relays to submit data to us and start contributing. And as we are still developing it, we need a smooth onboarding process. So we will not just open it for everyone, but we will start using it with some operators who know a little bit of background. So like everything you heard in the last hour. And this is why we will use another CIP. It is the POO, the POO protocol, the proof of onboarding, proposed and launched by Adam Dean earlier this year. So every one of you will get this little paper here, which has 2 QR codes. The first one is to, if you don't already have, to download the Vesper wallet. This is a mobile wallet. And why Vesper wallet? Because it has a function inside to scan a QR code. This is the second QR code. And by scanning this one, you will end up after 10 seconds with NFT. And it is an NFT that proves that you participated here. Also, the participants in Vegas will get one of these. And for the onboarding then, in a couple of weeks, this NFT is an early onboarding access code. So that was my presentation.
can imagine that, hearing all of this, it's a lot of information to consume. But I did see some hands before. Marcus, if you have just a few moments to answer a couple of questions, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. That's what Marcus is here for. So let's see, Rick. Sure.
Is this entire brief posted somewhere? I know about the video. Would you go review all of it again?
Yes, it's being recorded. So people who are unable to make it today, yes, they will be able to consume it afterwards. That's great. Any questions? Sir, you had a question earlier, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, well, did you try to maybe correlate some, when you have these early days, you try to correlate to some global events? For example, we know that a lot of people use the same example as cloud providers, like Amazon, for example.
Yep.
Do you try to correlate maybe these delays to what happens to the data centers for their release?
Yes, but so I have some specific cases. Just for example, one of the two large operators run his structure with quite a lot of relays, so it is more than enough, and he has even split it half in AWS and in Google Cloud. So this is by the way something I didn't mention, but I can bring it up here. These delayed blocks and these reverse blocks already gave us an idea that we don't even need to measure the propagation times. We can look in ratios for certain pools of relative small or even empty blocks, and it actually works. So we have on-chain data for the last 3 years, and we can identify pools who had some issues inside transaction processing, because if the relays have delays for some reason, they don't manage to bring the transactions to the pool will craft emptier or completely empty blocks, and this is then what appears on chain. So by looking at a certain time range and counting the blocks, and this is what we did for one of these large multipools, and then I made a list, and when I sorted by ratio, it was a perfect split between Google Cloud, which had some more issues, and AWS, who had less issues on this. The interesting thing is, when I then started looking into is Google Cloud here generally bad or not, then no, it was not. So if I looked at other pools who had only Google Cloud infrastructure, they had no issues at all. I'm not a Google Cloud designer, or cloud expert, or I don't know what the name is. So I looked into, and there is a quite complicated thing to set up and assign resources, and then you have a sort of throttling, or you have this super cheap remaining resources, but they are only cheap or only working as they are described when nothing else has priority. I don't know exactly, but it is probably a highly complex topic. And for example, one of the small pools had an issue or has his own hardware at home with a single connection, so it was something completely different. Fortunately, we are quite diverse. Ends up we have quite diverse issues in things.